so many people have been sharpening for so long that when they do try something new, they have a tendency to go, well, I've been sharpening for 40 years, of course I know what I'm doing. Don't try and tell me to change my technique. And they do it and you go, yes, you're using oil stone technique with water stone, that's why that's happening. But,
welcome to Crimson Guitars and welcome to Workshop Heaven. I am not in my studio. I did say that I'm completely rebuilding my entire workshop. It does not involve calling in other experts to stand beside me while I do videos. Hi.
how you doing?
Okay, we're at Workshop Heaven. This is Matt.
Hello.
This is your company. You founded this, and
When was that? Gosh, 12 years ago.
12 years ago. Matt is a purveyor of fine tools, and as such, he is my god, quite frankly. You have so many things in this room that I absolutely want to have in my life. Everywhere I look, it's like, ooh, ooh, and yeah, I have a problem. I really do have a problem. Now,
Not alone.
and hence how this has all grown up and how I ended up with a vintage tool shop and a guitar factory.
Yeah,
I wanted guitars, I wanted vintage tools.
can get quite addictive, can't it?
Oh my gosh, does it? So yeah, we all love tools. Now, I did a video series about probably 6 years ago. It was a long time ago. It was called Sharpening Masterclass, and I went through, at that time, all sorts of different ways of sharpening, from various machine things like the Sorby Pro Edge. There's competition to that coming out.
Really?
Yeah, there's stuff happening. It's going to be interesting, and various different machines and various different sharpening stones. And I started from the point of view of I used water stones. I love water stones. They're amazing. Why would anybody use anything else? And I also was slightly younger and more set in my ways. In other words, what my master told me is true, and you're all wrong. And as such, when I got to using the Scary Sharp system, my video was slightly less than polite. Pretty much. Because it failed. It failed utterly. I did it wrong. So I did a Scary Sharp system, which is basically getting micro fine sandpapers, bits and pieces, dampening them down and using that to sharpen your tools. And unless you're using the right stuff, it just doesn't work. It works out being more expensive in the long run than having a stone, and I think that's probably still the case. We'll get to that in a second.
Depends on the stone.
It does depend on something, very much so. But in my initial video, one of the first comments was, Ben, you need to go and check out Workshop Heaven because you're a fool because you've done this entirely wrong. And the one thing I really do is I always listen. If I on my YouTube channel, I'm teaching people as much as humanly possible about everything that I know. But 9 times out of 10, I will do something or say something, and somebody will say, "Oh, there's a better way of doing it." And if I don't listen to them, then I don't deserve to have a YouTube channel.
We're all learning all the time. One of the most important skills of the craftsman is to keep their ears open and listen and understand what other people are doing. And even if you don't use it, just having an appreciation for the fact that it exists and that you've selected something different because that works better for you is great. That's the optimum position to be in, knowing everything and choosing the one that works best for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you've got to keep an open mind to everything else.
And know that there's often a place and a time for everything.
Exactly.
And this was it. So pretty much immediately I went off, placed an order through your website. I think I put something on the bottom there saying, "Hey, I'm a YouTuber, you should sponsor me," and never got back to me, God damn it. I think we had like 20,000 subscribers at that point. It was nothing. Anyway, in the meantime, We've started working together a little bit. We know each other now through the Vintage Tool Shop as well, and through various auctions that we attend, and it was a mutual appreciation of skeleton saws as well.
Yes, they're rather nice, aren't they?
Oh gosh. If you do not believe that there is such a thing as a saw is a saw is a saw is a saw is total bullshit. Get down to a show, get a skeleton saw in your hands. It's just, the fact that I don't own one is a continual disappointment in my life right now.
You've got one on order there, haven't you?
I'm at, I think I'm 37. I'm buying my first house this year, and my wife is 100%, unless I get it secondhand in a shed, I'm not allowed any new tools. But once that's all sorted, 100%. No, they're incredible saws, and we've been talking about that sort of stuff, and a mutual appreciation of just too many people, especially, I've got vintagetoolshop.com, that's my side business. People come in daily, oh, it's an Aladdin's cave, and nobody makes tools like this anymore. And I'm like, no, nobody makes tools like this anymore. Buy an old Stanley. But they do.
They do.
And it's getting more and more and more. And you can get some incredible things that, yes, buying a 30 quid Stanley number 4 that will last you the rest of your life and is perfectly well made, it's a valid option, and I love my old Stanleys. I also have various Lee Nielsen's and bits and pieces like that. I also have Kwangshengs, which we have on the wall behind us here. And those are, what's a Kwangsheng number 4?
It's about 120, something like that.
There we go.
130 quid.
A brand new, precision made. They're just incredible out the box. And guaranteed and all that jazz, I assume.
Mm-hmm. Lifetime.
Lifetime guarantee.
So
the
obviously,
user's
life, not the tool's life.
The user's life. There we go. It's a valid option, a valid point at least. But anyway, this is besides the point now. So we've become friends talking about tools, and it occurred to me that I should actually talk to somebody else about what they think about sharpening. It is, as you said to me earlier, an incredibly divisive subject. Diamond stones are the best things since sliced bread because they got diamonds on them. And personally, the only diamond stone I use is for flattening my water stones.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, what we're going to do now is Matthew's going to talk about, well, tell me, so you are a particular proponent of Scary Sharp.
Yes. That's my go-to system, guided honing on glass with 3M microfinishing film.
You're the devil. I mean, literally, my old master, I was not allowed touching a honing guide. This is the Richard Kell, is it?
Yeah.
I was not allowed touching a honing guide because if you can't do it by feel, then you don't deserve to be building violins. And there was nary a honing guide to be seen anywhere near that workshop. Superglue, for some reason, was also, just superglue is not allowed. There was one guy who had some superglue hidden in his drawer, and he was everybody's friend. But yeah, so the arguments against Scary Sharp, it's very expensive in comparison to, okay, and these are opinions. This is not me saying it is. The opinion is, and my opinion was, it's very expensive in comparison to sharpening stones because you buy a piece of paper for, what, a couple of quid a piece or something like that? Mm-hmm. And then you use it and you rip through it, and 2 weeks later you come back and you need to buy another piece and you put it on. You might as well have bought a 30 quid ice bear or kingstone or something like that, and then you just have to flatten it off. But that's bullshit, really, isn't it?
I'd reckon to change my strips. So I get 4 strips out of a sheet. So they're costing me, what, 60 pence a strip.
Okay.
And those, I reckon, to change those about once every 3 months. So that's 1 sheet per year, per grade.
So two quid a year per grade. So
yeah, I actually worked it out this morning. if I was going to use 4 grades of Atoma diamond stones, which are the nuts of diamond stones.
Yeah.
If you're going to have diamond stones and you want them to last 25 years, that's the place to be.
Yeah.
That's the sort of lifespan that you're looking at spending the same amount of money over, but you're not into it from the get-go for the whole lot.
Yeah.
So with Atomas, you're buying outright and hoping to get 25 years use out of them. With these, as long as you don't sort of spend the same amount of money in the 25 years that you'd be using it, you'll end up in roughly the same place. So it's that sort of lifespan. If you're going to buy stones that are going to last less than 25 years, there are plenty of cheap options available, then you're better off doing this.
Buy cheap, buy twice.
Yeah.
It's the old adage, or an adage that I've seen quite recently and quite like, is buy something cheap, and if you break it, then buy a good one.
Yeah.
And I really like that, but I would much rather you buy the right thing for the job, and if it's 110 quid plain to start with, get the 110 quid plain, because that's it. It's there for life, and you've got it.
It works as a theory, but if there are things like chisels, no woodworker ever is going to get to the point where they've broken a chisel or worn it out.
Not unless they're doing something very wrong with it.
But you know you're going to use them all day, every day, throughout your entire woodworking career. So why would you even consider buying cheap ones?
Yeah, just do not. Period.
Yeah, there are some things that you just got to look at it and go, well, actually, I'm investing in something I'm going to be using all the time. I want a really good one.
Absolutely. Now there are some tools where that's not the case. Screwdrivers, for example. That was the only thing that came to mind. Always buy the best quality you can buy. Okay, so now the other thing that I mentioned was you tear through the sandpaper, the paper. It's not really sandpaper, is it? What is it called? Micro.
This is microfinishing film. This is lapping film, which is thinner, more accurate. It is slightly more fragile, but the reason that they don't put this printing on this one is because the ink has a thickness, and therefore it will interfere. It's that sort of fiddly.
Gosh.
The main answer is don't go forwards, because you're essentially planing it off the surface. If you're pushing a blade forwards on that, it's acetate. It's not.
So you're polishing the bevel, you want to be pulling backwards, and you want to be using a honing guide. When I first did this, I was not using a honing guide. I don't think I owned one at that point. You're not going to do it unless you're doing something wrong. With the precision of the honing guide, it should work absolutely fine.
Yeah. There's whole. If you're going to change materials, you need to look at changing techniques at the same time. You can't. You have to go wholesale into it. If you just
get off my grass, young
if you just change the materials and then try and use freehanding techniques on something that doesn't work very well with that, you're going to have a bad experience. And wherever you look throughout the whole contentious topic of sharpening, the people who've had bad experiences and come out of it saying Waterstones are rubbish are the ones who are using inappropriate techniques on them because they've just gone straight from oil stones to Waterstones, for example, and they're using their oil stone technique on their Waterstones and digging holes in them. And of course you are. You know, if you the example I always use is if you sit on a motorbike and tell it to giddy up, you're not going to go very far.
No.
But coming to the conclusion that motorbikes are rubbish because of that is clearly, obviously,
it's
false.
wrong thinking. Yeah. Well, there we go. So I was patently wrong. My next argument against using these, and I'm playing devil's advocate, is again due to technique. I sit here with my stone in front of me, much like this, and I will flatten the back of the plane blade or the chisel, moving that way. I'm trying desperately not to take all of the skin off my fingers. I'm going to mess up, aren't I?
Do you use a smoother?
So I'm going in that motion, and then I'll flip the blade over and move up and down the stone, because I'm using stones. Whereas what you've got is 4 different finishing films there, and you can't go off the edge of the 2 in the middle.
No.
because they're like that.
Okay, so the technique you're using there, going this way.
Let me grab the camera now at this point. I'm going to go freehand now, and enough talking head. We're going to do some demonstrations and see what happens.
So this movement is a Japanese sharpening movement, which works with chisels that have a hollow back. This is hollow in both directions. So that will sit on the stone, and it's self-jigging this way as well as that way. So for a Western chisel, where we just have a very slight concavity in the length of the blade, doing that is likely to give you a smiley face on the end of your blade and take it out of flat.
My life has been a lie.
If they didn't work, Japanese people wouldn't have been using water stones for all this time. Diamond stones wouldn't be as popular as they are. Everything works. It's just got to be done appropriately with the right technique for the right materials and situation and everything.
Awesome. Well, show us the right technique for Scary Sharp then.
Yes, sorry, that's what we're here for, isn't it? Right. So I've just got 4 strips of this stuck down to a piece of float glass. It is important that it's float glass, which is the cheapest kind. It's the stuff that they make shop windows out of.
Yeah.
This is 10 mil thick. You need at least 10 mil of thickness.
And that ensures that it's basically flat and straight floated. It's floated on tin, is that right?
Yes, they have a bed of molten tin, and then the glass is floated on top of that with an artificial atmosphere on top of it, and then out of that comes float glass, which is the basic product.
Yeah.
They then, to temper it, they have to put it through heated rollers, so it loses that natural flatness. But this, as it comes, if you drop it, it will shatter into long splinters, and it's quite unpleasant, so you have to look after it. But it is a tangent to the surface of the earth at that point. So it's very, very naturally flat. And it hasn't had to be machined or any expensive processes. So it's a relatively cheap way of getting something reliably flat.
Mentioning machining and flattening stuff, it's not one of these, which is a granite surface plate. What would you call it?
Yeah, engineered surface plate.
Engineered surface plate. Now, the Scary Sharp system could work just as well with that.
Yes. If you've got something like that, I probably wouldn't use it because it gets dirty and it can get scratched, and you're better off doing it with something
glass is great,
cheap and replaceable.
Awesome. So show us then.
Right. So basic principle for a Western chisel is
Ashley Isles chisel
is to have a very slight concavity in the back so that you isolate the area under the tip for polishing and create 2 points of contact with your flat surface. So you're gradually working back towards flat from very slightly concave. People go on about having flat backs on their chisels, and they think that by rubbing something on something that's flat, you magically transpose that flatness from one place to another. It doesn't work like that. You need to have it jigged, so you have to get it concave, then come back towards flat. It's exactly the same as when you're using a hand plane, and you make the surface concave, and then use through strokes until you get that one continuous shaving that tells you that you're within 1/1000 of an inch or so of flat. So absolutely perfectly flat doesn't exist at all.
So show me.
Okay, so I've got a little narrow strip on the back of the glass that I use for introducing that slight concavity into the back of a chisel. The cutting edge goes on the glass, and that's holding it flat that way.
Okay.
So it's jigged, and then we draw back. You can actually start in the middle and do little strokes and then take them out. So any point in the center has been past the abrasive lots of times, and then progressively less and less. So that's creating our concavity.
Are you also, at this point, work hardening the edge of the chisel?
No, not significantly. It's resting on the glass, but the glass isn't abrasive, so it's moving.
Well, no, work hardening, it's like when you're using a burnisher on the edge of a scraper. With pressure on the scraper, you're basically making the steel harder.
It might have that effect very slightly if it was softer.
I'm going to do some tests.
But having a slightly harder tip on your chisel.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah.
But that's not the reason for doing it. So we do our little strokes, getting gradually longer. So that's basically eating away some material in the centre of the chisel, just a little bit. And we're talking fractions of a thousandth of an inch. It's not huge. It's just got to be enough to move a little bit away so that when we come over to use the other side with a couple of drops of honing fluid.
This honing fluid, what's in that?
It's wonderful stuff. It's called Hone Right Number 1. So yes, made by a chap in a shed in Grimsby, and it's brilliant. It just absorbs it seems to hold the metal filings out of the abrasive surface. It lubricates. It is a corrosion inhibitor as well, so it stops your tools from going rusty, even though you just, if you get any on your tools, it's going to protect them against corrosion.
I'm sold.
So now that we come onto this side, I will get a scratch pattern on the tip here and somewhere up here. If I just work down through the grades, you're not doing huge amount because it's very focused. And we should see polish under the cutting edge just from doing that. Just wipe it off a little bit. There you can see we've got shiny just underneath the cutting edge, and we've still got our scratches from the previous bit up there, and it's starting to get a bit shiny up here as well. Right, so that's preparing the back. So once that's done, you don't need to do that again for ages.
Okay.
I'll just do a quick test and see how far out of flat we are, because it's minuscule.
It's not going to make any difference to your mortars and tenons, is it?
Not when you're transferring flatness from one surface to the other, which is what chisels have to be flat for. At its maximum, that's less than 0.02 of an inch. So I can get a 1.5 thou under there. So
that's nothing.
That's flatter than the sole of a plane.
Yeah.
So it's flat. Right, for the upper surface, the bevel, there's loads of stuff on doing bevels on YouTube and things like that.
Yeah.
Everybody goes, sharpening video. And they focus on the bevel, which is the easiest bit of all.
It really is.
And not on the back, which is the bit that's different from plane irons to chisels, and is critical to get that right.
Absolutely.
So for plane irons, you have a managed convexity rather than a managed concavity. But we can go over that in a minute.
Yeah.
So these honing guides are brilliant. They're such a piece of cake to use. You just have a mark on the bench. So you measure it the first time, place that up against the bench, lift it into position, and give it a donk, and that creates literally a benchmark. And then you come back to your benchmark each time you sharpen, and that's the same setting, so it's completely repeatable every time.
Ideal.
Probably don't need the coarse one, and we're just doing 2 strokes should be adequate on each.
Where do you stand on micro bevels?
Micro bevel is a slightly different thing to a secondary bevel. This is a secondary bevel.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing, in my opinion. It's maintainable, controllable, and repeatable, and it reduces the amount of faffing about that you have to do. You can see where you're at all the time. I don't have a problem with rounded bevels either. If I'm freehand honing, you kind of get a rounded bevel
to a certain
whatever
extent,
you're doing, because you're working on a surface that's bigger. So if the surface that you're working on is bigger than the tool that you're rubbing against it, you're making it convex in all cases.
Yeah.
If the abrasive surface is smaller, like we did on the back of the blade, that's the only way to make it concave, by using a smaller abrasive surface within the surface of the tool that you're working on.
Okay.
And there isn't anything that just does flat.
No.
So you have to steer it. You have to make it concave and then bring it back towards convex. Right, quick wipe off on the back.
So you're wiping off any
Just taking off any
burr, yeah. And that's a piece of leather you've got there.
Yes, brilliantly useful. You can flop them in the vise, you can sharpen on them, you can use it as a bit of a strop.
Is that literally a product you sell?
Yeah. We sell thousands of them, they're fantastic.
Bloody hell.
And that's it. That's sharp, that's done.
Okay, this is going down. Hold on. There we go. So that's a secondary bevel.
Yes.
So
So
that-
the micro bevel would be almost invisible, very, very tiny, just to change the characteristics of the blade. A secondary bevel is there for convenience so that we reduce the amount of steel that we need to polish in order to sharpen.
So, I mean, that took you, apart from the talking and us talking, a couple of minutes tops to get, done, basically.
Yeah, it should be a quick thing. It shouldn't. It should be a refreshing break from work, rather than
A job.
yeah.
And that is the thing. A lot of people, for example, when I'm sharpening scrapers, people say, oh, it's such a long, hard, nasty process, and I'd rather not use a scraper than learn how to sharpen it. And scrapers are amazing. They're just, I know.
So you'd rather do what? Sand?
Well, exactly.
That's not Monday.
It's insane.
Yeah, it should be.
That is as sharp as you could possibly want a chisel to be. What micron is the lapping?
That's 3 micron. The pink is it has a slightly different resin on it, which makes it more durable.
Okay.
3 microns is roughly equivalent to a 10,000 grit waterstone, I think. They go right the way down to 0.3 of a micron, 0.5 of them, no, 0.05 of a micron, which would be a 200,000 grit Japanese waterstone. So you're not going to run out of fineness.
So you could go down as
it goes ridiculously further than you need it to.
yeah. This is the thing. So I've got my Shafton stones, and I've got I think my finest is 10,000 grit.
Yeah, which is already gilding the lily.
Well, I hardly ever use it. I just don't. You don't need to. I mean, quite frankly, I would rather use a strop to get that.
But for the
a
sake
good
of
strop.
how much that is, I don't know what's there, about 80 pence worth,
Yeah.
60 pence worth.
Well, this is it, and then that's the final
It's
thing.
nice to be able to find out what you can do with that, isn't it?
And this is the difference. So when I'm selling myself on the idea of using this instead of sharpening stones, which
Oh, we'll get you.
I
Don't worry.
didn't expect, is that it's there, done. Okay. Now, one thing that occurs to me is, are you transferring any of the grits across?
No.
Because when you're doing, for example, when you're polishing a guitar with the lacquer and all that, you use your 1200 grit, and then you make absolutely certain to get rid of any slurry, anything that's going to have remaining grit left in there or bits of metal before you move on to the next grit up, and so on.
It's aluminium oxide, so it doesn't break down like silicon carbide does.
Okay.
That's why wet and dry paper gets finer as you use it.
Yes.
Because it's like little shards of glass that are constantly breaking.
You are like the ultimate geek, aren't you?
On sharpening. This is
Beautiful.
12 years of waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning going, how can we improve this? How can we make it better?
We're soulmates. There we go. Okay, so that's. Well, I can't think of any other arguments. I cannot believe this is literally a 180-degree turn, a change in my mind. Not since the first video I did, when I completely slammed the thought of doing this ever. I'm actually, I will, and I will use it.
We haven't got to the best bit yet.
Okay, show me the best bit.
All right.
Masking tape. I like masking tape.
You've heard of the ruler trick.
Okay, now we're going to have a fight. Now we are going to fight.
Don't tell me you've been told never ever to do the ruler trick.
Oh no, I've made videos telling people never ever to do the ruler trick. In fact, is it Mr. Charlesworth?
It is. David Charlesworth.
He phoned me up. Ben, there's a dude called David Charlesworth on the phone.
Look, the
Oh.
David Charlesworth.
Okay, I'll take that. Ben, I'm not very happy with you. One, you've said that the ruler trick was developed by somebody else, because I completely forgot who it was. And I thought it was Paul Sellers. This is the thing. So,
No,
so
it was
one,
David.
You've misappropriated my idea. It's me. And two, you said that it's not good. I'm sorry, Mr. Charlesworth, please forgive me. Okay, you should come and do a video. And in fact, exactly what we've done here. I've told him he needs to come and film with me
I'm a massive
and tell me
proponent of it.
why I should. Maybe my
David-
rulers are too thick.
David is one of the most academic woodworkers that I know.
Yes.
In terms of academic rigor. He draws upon sources like Wooding and
Wooding, the incredibly valuable vintage planes.
no, not
I'm in buying antique tools mode. If you ever find a moulding plane with the name Wooding on it, sell it to me, please.
buy it. Cuddle it, keep it.
Yeah. No, sell it to me. Sell it to me. Come on.
No, there was Robert Wooding, the Jim King shot.
Okay.
You know, the great names of 20th century woodworking who've sort of carried these skills forward into the next century for us,
Yeah.
and written books on them and taught them. And he's added to that knowledge, and he's sort of learned everything that everybody else has done, and then added this little thing to it, which
We're going
is
to
the ruler
stop
trick.
filming now, and I'm going to go and visit David Charlesworth. Thank you very much.
So, but
Okay, so
it's like a wall.
Yeah.
The craft is like a wall, and everybody adds their layer of bricks.
Absolutely.
And David Charlesworth's layer of bricks is
it's considerable.
considerable. It is one thing that will be remembered for our generation.
That is oh my God.
Nice, aren't they?
That is literally a Damascus steel screwdriver.
Yeah. Those guys in Pakistan making zombie knives wanted me to buy zombie knives, and I said, well, why don't you make something useful?
There we go. Okay, look, I'm so easily distracted.
Yes,
I'm going to have
sorry.
to approach David again and do some filming with him, because that would be awesome.
He's brilliant. He's
He
absolutely
really is.
brilliant.
He works a lot with Lee Nielsen, doesn't he?
He does.
And yeah, his tutorial videos are immense. He has a YouTube channel.
Yeah, he started
So-
putting some bits of his videos
Yeah.
up on YouTube as well.
So there we go. Now,
Cool.
so ruler trick, carry on, show me then.
Okay, before we get to the ruler trick.
We've got to do the plane.
So this is a fresh out of the packet, brand new plain iron.
Guangsheng as well.
Indeed.
Okay.
And
Same guys that make them.
the only reason I'm not using this one is that it's already been polished without using the ruler trick.
Okay.
So that, because that one's been done with a slightly different technique, which is putting a concavity in the length of the blade by hitting it before you start.
Okay.
So you put it in the vise, give it a tap, and put a couple of thou of concavity into it, and then just hone it flat as you would, but it limits the amount that you need to sharpen,
Okay.
or that you need to have polished. There's no reason for the whole back of a plain iron to be polished, because all of that's going to be underneath the lever cap anyway.
Yeah.
So it's contacting air in the dark, it's not a registration surface, so there's
Yeah.
no point in having it flat. Right. So we've popped that in the guide. I'll use my benchmark again to get it to 30 degrees. And we'll take a swipe with both wheels on the film, which should give me a perfectly even bevel. Which it is doing. Right, so that's actually just about created a little burr there. So we're now on to polishing. So I'm going to move down to the 15 micron and just go square down the center of that for 2 strokes. 9 micron and 3. And that's it, that's the bevel side done. So it's all about being very precise and doing things once in like 1-2 strokes. Mm-hmm. It's just a very precise process. So that's a square edge. If I want to put a camber on that, I just stand one wheel off the film and I can put, you can sort of see it in the fluid, that you just get half the blade or slightly under half the blade. So if I come and repeat that through all of those grits, a little bit down the middle, I've now got a suitable camber for a smoothing iron.
Perfect.
And it's repeatable, and I can go back and rehome that again and again and again, and I'm not wasting any material by going back to flat and then coming back to camber again. So your blades last longer as well.
Again, I've been living a lie.
Take that out and we'll do the back. So I'll lay that on the masking tape, so the masking tape lifting it up.
So the masking tape is acting as the ruler?
Yes, it's basically it's the same idea.
Same principle, yeah.
Same principle, it's just using slightly different materials for it. And then we'll do small strokes. I don't want to do massive long strokes because I'd be changing the angle.
Far too much, yes.
Sort of.
That was one of my main arguments with the ruler trick. That, and it didn't stick down to the stone, so the ruler was moving, the stone was moving, and whatever I got was very imprecise. Right. This feels precise to me.
Okay, so I can see I've now replaced the grinding marks with a scratch pattern on the back of the blade. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. So that's done enough. 9 micron is the first time that you actually see a reflective surface.
So you're pulling and pushing there, are you?
I am, but it's jigged. If I was doing it that way, so it's acting like a plane,
then it would, yeah, okay.
Then that's when you get mucked up and you end up planing it off.
Yeah.
If you do get a tear in it, don't worry about it. Just cut it off and keep going. Yeah. Because you're going to get to that point where there's a little bit missing. If it does create a bump in the edge, when you get back onto the flat again, that bump's going to stick up until it gets ground away. So
of course.
It doesn't matter if you get hollows in it, it still functions as a flat surface. So all we're doing is taking out the grinding marks and replacing them with polish. We're not creating a secondary bevel, we're not changing the angle, we're just polishing out the grinding marks, that's it. And it's tiny, it's that much. And that's all there is to it. It takes seconds.
That was literally, again, a minute or two from literally pulled out of the packaging. Where's the packaging? Literally pulled out of the packaging to sharp and ready to use.
So
I spend a lot of time sharpening tools that could be spent making guitars.
This is another David Charlesworth tip, tilting your plane up when you put the irons in it so that you're working on a flat surface. You'd probably be horrified at how dirty that is. But right. It's my special gnarly bit.
Everybody likes a gnarly bit.
This is Australian York gum.
Okay, so traditionally, plane aficionados would say you really need a low angle plane or a high angle plane to be able to deal with something that burly. That really is actually very figured.
Yes. Right, I'll just check what I've got laterally.
See, I do that with fingers. I run I run a finger on either side of the blade and very gently feel how far it's coming out. But Tom March, one of our other luthiers, he does what you do. And whenever I try, I mess it up.
You can use a little piece of wood and go over it. Right. Okay. So I'm just getting the shavings coming up in the middle, so that indicates that we've got the camber right.
Yeah.
And we'll just take a fractionally heavier cut on that. So that's...
You don't get nice wispy long shavings when you're doing something with a burr, but
probably just you can get wispy long shavings on.
I'm very unimpressed with the fact that I spent the last 15 years of my life doing it wrong.
That's only one technique, and that's scary. That's why I particularly like that.
Yeah.
If you're working out of the back of a van, a big piece of glass isn't going to work for you.
No.
So stoned or diamond plates are probably going to be ideal in that situation. Totally different techniques, using freehanding methods with that. And again, that's great, that's quick, that gets you where you want to be. And if you try to use these techniques on those, that wouldn't work. Water stones, again, different. You use the coarser side of the stone to get that concavity in. So you're working across this way.
Yeah.
You're again using a narrower surface than what you're sharpening to create concavity, and then you go around that way and draw to get the polish on that side, on the underside of the bevel rather. Coticules tend to be used for sharpening small, tiny little things.
So that's Belgian blue.
That's Belgian blue. This is coticule, which is basically the same thing. Coticule's got slightly more garnets in it than Belgian blue. But that tends to be used for little penknife blades and stuff like that. It's beautiful. It's a very gentlemanly way to sharpen. It's lovely. Yeah, so there's different methods to... The important thing is not to mix the methods and the materials around and end up with something that doesn't work. And if your sharpening isn't working for you, then that's probably where you're going wrong. So buy a book, get some advice, talk to somebody who really enjoys using those materials and gets a lot out of them, and get them to show you what they're doing differently.
Absolutely. And do not prejudge. Turns out I'm an arsehole.
Not at all.
I'm fine. I'm fine with that. It's all right.
I wish I had 50p for everyone who's used a sharpening method and gone, oh, don't like that.
Well, this is it. This is it. I was not expecting to be this convinced. Using the masking tape like that, that is a very small back bevel essentially that you're putting on there. It's minuscule. That makes no difference. When I tried it, I was using a ruler, and the thinnest ruler I could find was probably 3/4 of a mil, which is huge in these terms. So we're probably an hour into this 20-minute video. I'm going to say thank you guys very much for watching. Click like and subscribe. Check out workshopheaven.com, crimsonguitars.com, vintagetoolshop.com. All of those things. Links in the comments below. And let us know what you would like to see moving forward. You're thinking about getting into making videos.
Yeah, possibly.
There you go. If I put you on spot on video, then you kind of have to do it. But no, there's going to be, here we go, contractually on camera. Tell me you're going to send me a load of tools and I'll do videos about them.
Okay.
Done. Okay. This has been a long road. I've been following your business for at least 6 or 7 years now, since I was first told about it by a fan on YouTube, actually.
Thank you.
And yeah, it's awesome. Thank you very much for this. And yeah, check it all out and let me know what you think in the comments below. And the more of you that click through to Workshop Heaven, could you do a custom URL thing or something?
Yeah, I'm sure we can come up with something.
We'll do something, then we can actually verify how many of you it is, and I can sit at home furiously mashing links.
And then phone me up and go, you know how many people I sent you?
You know how many times I clicked that button? No, it's awesome. From my point of view, what I have taken away from this entire thing is you took a brand new plane blade that I saw you take out of a packet, and within maybe 2 minutes of working time, as a boss, as somebody who pays 24 people an hourly wage, a number of whom are sharpening tools.
I thought you were going to say you paid 24p an hour.
Yeah, I'm not going to admit that on camera. Yeah, there's 5 or 6 or 7 people who work for me who sharpen planes. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, it's taking you an hour to sharpen that. That's cost me a tenner. And yes, of course, he needs a sharp plane. That was 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. My God.
And the less you rub on that stuff, the longer it lasts. So.
I'm convinced. Thanks for watching. See you guys later. I'm going to go and lust after some tools. Cheers. Bloody hellfire. 2 minutes.